Hi, I'm Jason Dasey, former BBC, CNN and ESPN broadcaster, now working with ABC News Australia. And these are my top 5 tips for field presentation. Now, when I talk about field presentation, I mean when you're going on camera in the field, when you're on location. And this applies both to stand-ups and live crosses. Point number 1 is placement. Placement means where your stand-up will go in your package. Is it going to be at the start? Is it going to be somewhere in the body of the package? Is it going to be at the end? Now, if it's at the start, you're going to keep it quite short because often this is going to be in a live news situation where the newsreader in the studio throws to you and he or she's already said something about the story. You need to keep your link quite short so you can go into the package itself, so you're not repeating too much. Now, if it's in the body of the story, it's a bridge or link stand-up, this will often be a counterpoint to your story. For example, you might be doing a story on a proposed new shopping centre in the outskirts of Melbourne. And at the beginning, you're talking about how good it's going to be with the shops and the boost to the economy and all that. But you may then provide a counterpoint by saying something like, well, not everyone is happy about this new shopping centre. And then you might be talking about an environmental group. So this sends the story in a different direction, and you could be linking to an interview grab with maybe an environmental activist. So it's very, very important to kind of really change the direction and add another layer to your package with that bridge stand-up. And of course, the final stand-up is the closing stand-up, where often you'll be pointing to something in the future. For example, the City Council will meet on December the 4th to discuss the shopping centre proposal, or there's going to be a march of the environmentalists on November the 30th. And do be sure to try and avoid those cliches like remains to be seen and only time will tell. Okay, point number 2 in my top 5 tips for field presentation: execution. So, how are you going to do this stand-up? Where are you going to do it? You've probably got a bit of an idea of what you like to do, but it's always a good idea to talk to your camera operator. Quite often they'll be more experienced than you, and you could say, hey, for this story, I'm thinking about doing the stand-up here. And he or she may say, yeah, that's a good idea. Why don't we add this? Or may have another suggestion altogether. Now, some of the reasons that you'll be doing stand-ups, one might be you'll show that you're actually at the scene of something happening. For example, if it's that story on the shopping centre in Melbourne, the Prime Minister might be there walking around looking at the proposal, at the building site, and you can jump in front of the Prime Minister or be in the background as he or she is going around that site. So it shows that you were there at the story. Another reason, to do a stand-up might be to, illustrate a different location, something that's not in the story. For example, many years ago when I lived in Asia, I was covering the post-tsunami relief efforts in Phuket, Thailand. And there was a rugby game for orphans in this stadium that was right next to the beach, but you couldn't actually see the beach. So at the beginning of the story, I was actually at the beach, introducing the story, talking about this is where the tsunami came, this is the way tourism's been affected, and then we went into the stadium after that. So that's another good reason to use it. And also when you're lacking pictures, for example, you might be covering a court story, and often cameras are not allowed in courtrooms, and you actually need to talk about what happened. So you can talk about what the judge said, you're outside the courthouse. So this is a way of getting around the fact that you don't have pictures of what you're talking about. Okay, point number 3 in my 5 tips for field presentation: confidence and clarity. Now, this can apply both to your stand-ups and also to your live crosses. It's good to be very, very confident, and this will come with, all the years of doing it, but really be kind of focused on what the story is about. And if you sit down before you do the story and think about what's the core of this story, it will help when it comes to your stand-up. So just take a couple of minutes before you go out and think about what this whole story is about. And clarity, you don't want to make it too long. You want to get right to the point. You want to keep it as succinct as possible because timing is very, very important when it comes to your packages. And of course, when you're doing a live cross as well, you have to be very, very confident and have that clarity as well. So do try and carry that confidence if you can. And, as they say, fake it until you make it. Really show that confidence if you can. All right, point number 4 in my 5 tips for field presentation: know, see, hear, and next. Now, I've got to give credit to these tips to my ABC colleague, Kathy Schnitzling, who was a former news director in commercial TV, and she's super experienced, and I really agree with what she said. So let me give you an example. You often going to be sent out to a breaking news situation to do a live cross. And what we did recently at ABC in Brisbane was this factory fire in an industrial area. I took care of the radio and the digital part of this, and my colleague went out and was about to do the live cross. So in the car on the way out to the factory where there was this fire, she called up the fire brigade, she called up the police, PR, and got all the information there. Of course, we don't know much about what's going on, so she at least had something to go with. And by the time she got to the factory and started doing her live crosses, she said, well, what we know is police have sent 3 different units here, and the fire brigades are putting out the fire here. And then obviously not much to know, but I can see a woman crying there by the side of the road, and maybe she's involved, and I can hear the sound of explosion in the factory, and you can even add, I can smell something as well. So you're the eyes, ears, and the nose of people watching from home when it comes to field presentation. So remember that. And the next one, of course, is next. What happens next? So the police may have said they're going to close off the area until tomorrow morning, and it's going to affect peak hour traffic. So this is very, very important to know as well. So just take it a step at a time, and you'll be right when you're in that live cross situation. And point number 5 in my 5 tips for field presentation: practice makes perfect. So when I say practice makes perfect, what I'm saying is that there are both ways of practicing before you do your live cross, and also ways of practicing in general to make sure you get better at it. So let's take the example of that factory fire in Brisbane. In the car, after you've spoken to the fire brigade and the police PR, you can actually start practicing what you're going to say, because you pretty much predict what the newsreader is going to ask you. What can you tell us? What's going on? So practice that in the car on the way over, or just if you're not, if you've traveled there already, just be, before you go on the air, just practice it through your mind. And no worries about, talking out loud. Your camera person won't mind that. And then once you get into it, you'll feel more confident. If you've got the first few lines right, it'll kind of all flow. And the other thing when it comes to practice makes perfect, even when there's not a story, get your friends or your family to give you kind of back and forth. Pick a story and do that practice of something. You can pick anything in the news and you can read up on it and say, okay, I want you to pretend you're the newsreader. And even look for opportunities, say, for local radio or university radio, and practice that back and forth. It's going to really stand you in good stead when it comes to that live cross situation. I mean, I've been doing this for years, but I still make sure that every 2 weeks I talk to my former radio station in Singapore about the latest Australian news, just so I keep the practice in. It's unpaid, but I love it. It's all a good amount of fun. So just to recap my 5 top tips for field presentation. Number 1, the placement, where the stand-up goes. Number 2 is the execution, how you're going to do it, where you're going to do it. Point number 3 is confidence and clarity. Point number 4 is know, see, hear, and next. And point number 5 is practice makes perfect. And one final reminder to really enjoy your time on camera. I know people that just want to get on and try and get it done as quickly as possible without making a mistake. Look at this as a fantastic opportunity for you to do a great job, to really service the audience and show them what's happening where you are. So I'd like to wish you all well with your journalistic journey. If you want to know more about me, do check out my Facebook page, also YouTube, LinkedIn, Instagram, and Twitter. I'm Jason Dasey. Thank you so much for watching.